The city of Rouen is France's fifth busiest port after Marseille, Le Havre, Dunkirk, and Nantes. It's the country's third most important river port, locating important factories like plastics, mechanical construction, vehicles, and electronics. During the Battle of Normandy, following the D-Day invasions, the old town and the industrial zone on the south bank of the River Seine were destroyed. After the war, the people of Rouen rebuilt the old town and its industrial estates stone by stone. Reaching the city center today, you will see the splendid contours of the old religious and administrative center of Haute-Normandy. You'll see the Cathedral of Notre Dame, the churches of Saint-Maclou and Saint-Ouen. In 1956, the city of Rouen celebrated the reconstruction of the city. The celebration of the rebirth of the city had been postponed to 1956 in order to celebrate the reconstruction of Rouen and the 500th anniversary of the rehabilitation of Joan of Arc at the same time. And not without reason. The magnificently restored buildings once formed the background, the setting, the scene for one of the most dramatic episodes in the nation's history. Let me take you back in time. Let me take you into the dark days of the 100 Years' War between France and England. On the 24th of May, 1431, workers leave work. Shopkeepers close up for the day. Joan of Arc will be taken to the square of Saint-Ouen Church to confess or deny. And everybody wants to get a glimpse of the maiden who had been imprisoned in the castle for months. The square is packed. People can hardly move when the prisoner is finally presented to the crowd. Oh my God! She wears trousers. People start talking. Poor thing, they even didn't dress her properly. Oh, of course not. Satan doesn't allow her to wear women's clothes. Come on, you. Do you think that the soldiers would have left her alone if she would have been dressed like a woman? When Cochon, the Bishop of Beauvais, arrives on the square, people stop talking. This man has led the trial against Joan. One can hear the screeching of the seagulls. Quiet, quiet! Joan is speaking. What does she say? She will add nothing what she has already said. You will be excommunicated, excluded from the church, the bishop exclaims. No longer will the scabies of your heresy infect the faithful of Christ's church. Tumult, people screaming. No one can hear what is read to Joan. Pardon her! Joan, repent! Sign, or you will be burned at the stake. The bishop takes her hand and leads her hand over his parchment. She confessed. Good for you, Joan! Scandalous! She can't even write. Joan is taken away to be imprisoned for life. 6 days later, even greater crowds flock to the market square of Rouen. Come on! Let's go to the market! The Virgin will be burnt at the stake! Burnt at the stake? Why? She confessed, repented. She has worn men's clothes again, thereby undoing her confession. The unanimous verdict of the judges. 30 theologians, 40 jurists, 6 bishops, and 7 medical doctors reads, a heretic, guilty of relapse, will be turned over to her worldly judiciary, who will carry out her execution. 600 English soldiers, fully armed, form a square around the cart that will take Joan to the market square. Dressed in a black penitential robe. On the long pointed head the words, heretic, a straight one, a straight one. Where did it all go wrong? Six years before, Joan of Arc experienced the dazzling vision of the Archangel Michael, selecting her to save the kingdom. How could she ever accomplish such a mission? The English occupied more than half of France. Charles VII, the uncrowned king of France, had withdrawn south of the Loire River. But later, the voice of the angel is complemented by the voices of Saint Catherine and Saint Marguerite. And 4 years later, these voices led Joan from native Domremy to the chateau of Chinon, the residence of Charles VII. Noble Dauphin, I'm Joan. I covered 300 miles to tell you that your kingdom will be saved. The King of Heavens has mandated me to raise the siege of Orleans and lead you to Reims for your sacring. At first, nobody believes a word of what she's saying. But finally, she's given the benefit of the doubt. Joan will be given the command of a small unit. An armorer in Tours manufactures her suit of armor. Voices inspire the banner she visualizes. God the Father is situated above a rainbow. The inscription, Jesus Marie. The voices also tell her where to find a sword. Behind the church of Fierbois, at the place where Charles Martel had rested after he had defeated the Moslems at Poitiers in 732, a 700-year-old sword is found. Thus armed, the 17-year-old maiden leads 3,000 French soldiers to Orleans in order to break the siege. It's a turning point in the 100 Years' War. From all sides, men joined the ranks of the Virgin of Orleans. After the liberation of Orleans, the Virgin and her men set out for Reims. Enemies take to their heels. City opened their gates. L'Angelique, the angel, is the name with which the crowds address Joan as she rides through the streets. Men and women try to touch her hand, kiss the red robe that the city of Orleans had given her. Even the most hardened soldiers obey her blindly. And yet, no thoughtless word ever passes her lips. She doesn't allow swear words. No one is allowed to plunder. No one has ever seen her use her sword. After the battle, she weeps bitter tears for the perished. After the arrival of Joan in Reims, the bells of the Cathedral of Reims are ringing all through the night, thus announcing the sacred oiling of the king. Sacred oil is used for the oiling of the king. After the coronation, Joan kneels down before the king, embraces him around the legs while shedding tears. She says, gentle king, now is done God's pleasure, who willed that I raise the siege of Orleans, that I bring you to this city of Rheims, to receive your holy sacred, showing that you are the true King of France. Immediately after the coronation, the voices stopped their council. When Joan asks the king to be relieved of her command, he refuses. At his request, the Virgin takes the army to Paris. Trying to cross the moat around the Louvre fortress, she's hit by an arrow. When the king forbids Joan to attack the city from the east, the wounded Virgin disappears. Nobody knows where she is. Several days later, the wounded Virgin is found in prayer in the Basilica of St. Denis. A ram put on the altar as an offering. In her heart, the Virgin had returned her command to God. But when Henry VI, the young King of England, arrives in Calais in order to enforce his coronation in Rheims, Joan moves her army towards the English and their allies from Burgundy. At Compiègne she's unhorsed, captured by soldiers of John of Luxembourg. As Charles VII, the King of France, by the grace of the Virgin of Orleans, refuses to pay the ransom, Joan is sold for £10,000 to the English and taken to Rouen to be put on trial. For months on end, the illiterate Joan of Arc has to face dozens and dozens of the most talented scholars of the land. As her voices have stopped their infallible counsel, Joan has to live through this ordeal all by herself. Finally, the brain trust of Sorbonne University and Inquisition, paying lip service to the English occupier, have discredited the coronation of Charles VII by proving the satanical nature of Joan of Arc. Witch, may the devil take you! Joan, white as a sheet, tried to disregard the mob, which is obviously taking delight in her upcoming execution. Because of the ever-expanding crowd, the cart surrounded by the English soldiers makes very little progress. When the soldiers have finally piloted the cart with the convicted heretic to the market square, the atmosphere among the crowd has become choking. People try to charge the cart, some yelling in their violence, some trying to spit at the Virgin in their hatred, others weeping in their compassion. The soldiers move the cart towards the huge stake in the middle of the square. When the dignitaries have taken their seats, Cauchon, Bishop of Beauvais, takes his stand and begins to preach. If one part is hurt, all parts are hurt with it. Bastard, how dare you! Tumultuous upheaval. But all of a sudden, a strange silence surrounds the words spoken by Joan. My king cannot be held accountable for whatever I have done. What does she say? Shut up! Shh! I forgive the men who have judged me. I forgive our English lords. When tied to the pile on the stake, she asked for a cross. A bystander makes a cross from two pieces of wood. As an official of the worldly judiciary signals the beginning of the execution, Joan screams, "I have not been led astray. My voices came from God. I have not." Smoke, flames, a blaze. The Virgin screams. What is she screaming? Jesus. More flames, more smoke. Wave that smoke away! In the midst of smoke and fire, a sunken down body, partly burned, becomes visible. Some women scream, some faint. Men turn their heads away. Joan of Arc played a remarkable role in the history of France. She had been able to unite the country in an unprecedented manner. After her, only Napoleon and de Gaulle have been able to inspire unity in a comparable manner. 25 years after her death, Joan was rehabilitated. In 1920, she was canonized and made patron saint of France. Everywhere in France, you will see her image.